Hi, my name is Joseph. I'm a licensed therapist and co-owner of Evolve Wellness, a holistic health practice. Join our team at Evolve in a conversation about our summer body, how we can be self-conscious about the way we look and where those messages can come from, and often it's coming from our childhood. What are some real tools and strategies that we can use in our modern world with technology, the internet, to combat the very heavy lies that we'll tell ourselves that make it really challenging to just enjoy summer. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We have Charles, our emotion and spiritual coach. We have Jesse, our certified personal trainer, and Tyler, co-owner and holistic health specialist. We're really excited for you to sit down and enjoy our conversation. Topic about body positivity and beach bodies. I'm really excited to get into just how we look at that from exercise, how we look at that from our mental, kind of emotional sides and mindsets. So let's dive in. I don't know, something like that. Is that a good intro? I just spilled some coffee here.
This is just a commercial for Evolve right now.
Yeah.
Look how much fun we are. Don't you want to work with us?
Don't you want to work with us? Okay.
This is the time of year when we've abandoned our New Year's resolutions and we're starting to set new goals because we're looking forward to summer. And a lot of us can get in our heads about what it means to be fit for summer and what that means for our wardrobe and what that means for our family vacations and how we're going to enjoy ourselves over the summertime.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's important to start to think now about what that's going to look like when we start to hit May, June, July.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I know, as a trainer, everyone hits the gym the first 2 weeks of the year and 2 weeks before summer. As soon as it gets warm out, gyms are flooded.
We've had our first 80-degree day. It's time. It's time to start recommitting to those workout plans that we had for ourselves.
Yeah. So I think an important thing to remember, and you and I have talked about this before, is the mindset behind why we're working out, right? And, you and I, in our last video, kind of just talked about, reasons people work out and for the aesthetics versus health. And there's nothing wrong with working out for the aesthetics, but there is a problem when the aesthetics are overwhelming to the mind, I would say. When it's all-encompassing, it's something you think about throughout your day, and something that you feel negatively about for yourself in some way. If you're working out because you don't like how you look, instead of you want to look this way. And that seems like a very fine line, but it is there.
I think there's a difference too in working out because you have a goal for what you want to look like versus working out because of the way other people are going to perceive you.
Yeah.
And I think that having goals for yourself, as long as they're healthy, can be totally fine. But if your goals are motivated by shame or by guilt or by embarrassment of how other people view you in the world, then that's where it becomes an issue. Yeah. And I think, we think about the term beach body and we think about, am I going to buy that 2-piece bathing suit versus a 1-piece bathing suit? And a lot of times those decisions, at least for women, are made based on what other people are going to think about us in that situation. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever been walking down the beach on vacation and been like, oh, look at her. Why is she wearing that?
Nope.
I'm not thinking about, I'm probably honestly focused more on what I look like.
Oh, I am definitely thinking about what I look like. Am I holding my body just right? Yeah.
So the good news is nobody else cares.
No. No one else cares.
They really don't.
But it can cause so much mental weight. I mean, I have talked to so many people that will say, I didn't go to the beach for years, or I always wore a t-shirt over top because they were so embarrassed about how their body looked, and that's tragic, honestly. It's very sad to not experience life because you feel that heavy of an emotion about how you look. And you spoke about it being for women. I don't know, guys, do we feel the same way? Is there something with the beach body?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think definitely just that you're, I don't know, supposed to look a certain way, and there's lots of pressure. I mean, I've definitely felt that, for sure. And I think something with what you're saying with the guilt and shame, I think a lot of times something I was thinking about is, kind of, I don't know if everyone knows that their goals are motivated by what they think other people, like how they're going to be perceived. And so sometimes I think we can think it's, oh, this is what I want.
Yeah.
But just taking the time to be like, why do I have this physical goal? Why am I doing this? And is it
Definitely.
just for the aesthetics to please other people? And asking that question, I don't think a lot. I think there are some people out there that have not asked that question. You know?
For sure. I mean, that's definitely a question I ask when I start working with clients when they tell me that they have some sort of aesthetic goal. That's fine that you have an aesthetic goal. That makes sense, you know, but it's just what is the reason behind it? And that can often be very very revealing for someone that they haven't even thought about.
The other question I like to ask when people have an aesthetic goal is, what's going to change in your life when you reach that goal?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that this goal is going to help you with? Because I prefer clients to make goals that are, you know, I want to carry all of my groceries in one trip, or I want to be able to play on the playground with my kid without getting out of breath. I would much rather somebody set a goal that is going to enhance their life versus something that may start to take over.
Yeah. And it can be overwhelming. Like the beach body look, right? This super toned figure. That's a very involved workout routine.
Yes.
That's
And
a very involved diet.
And that's not very realistic, right?
Not for a lot of people. And that's more than, you know, just diet and exercise. And people will say, they're like, oh, anyone can do it. Well, I mean, I guess the idea of anyone can, maybe, but there are a lot of other things that play into this that can make it much more difficult for some people.
I like to say that my body type is like, there are abs, but they're covered by a little bit of pizza and wine. And like, that's okay. Like, that is the balance that I
like cookies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather be that person and enjoy food with friends and being able to go out without, you know, stalking the menu ahead of time to see what I can eat and things like that, knowing that those are, you know, not an everyday occurrence, but, and that fitness still has a place in my life, but that for me feels way better than, I mean, in reality, in order to have a six-pack, you have to stick to your meal plan 98% of the time.
Oh, yeah.
There is not any wiggle room.
Yeah.
So that for me is just not worth it.
Yep. Well, and then that can also be overwhelming coming into summer, which tends to be a lot of fun, right? Like, you want to be able to go out and have fun. There's, you know, kids are off school. Hopefully there's, like, less work going on in your life. You have some vacations planned. And we're eating and drinking a whole lot more things and not necessarily exercising all the time. We tend to be more active, right? We go outside and do things in the sunlight, but it's not like the concentrated exercise that gets you a six-pack, right? And so, yeah, that can be really daunting coming into summer as well, being like, oh, I haven't hit my goal yet.
Right.
And I'm probably not going to. Yeah, I mean, definitely. So, you know, like we've said, like, aesthetics aren't bad, right? It's okay to want to look a certain way, but it is the thinking, like, behind it of why, you know? And, you know, I do want to kind of get into kind of the mental weight that this can have a little bit. I don't know if you are able to speak at all to that, but just... I know for a lot of clients that I've worked with, and for seasons of my life where I was training for a specific thing, where it was, you know, I had to stick to my plan, like, you know, like training for a marathon and something like that. Like, we don't like to train for marathons all the time. Like, no. You and I both just ran a marathon recently, and it's just like, do I want to do another one, like, right now? And you and I, same thing. We've been talking about that. You know, it's just like, it's a lot of work, and you have to think about it throughout your week and throughout your day, and what the choices that you're making to support your next run. And it's the same way when you're trying to, you know, get a certain aesthetic. And so if the reason behind it is something that has to do with shame, that's even heavier. You're thinking about it more throughout your day, and it affects the way that you think about other things in your life as well.
Yeah, I think something that comes to mind, even when you were talking, you were like, well, I don't sit around on the beach and look at people and go, But one of the problems that I think happens with our mental block here is that we all have at least some experience being around someone who does
Yeah.
do that, even if it's not at the beach, you
Yes.
go to
Yeah.
a restaurant, you're like, can you believe they wore that out? And that is fed into our brains.
Yeah.
So when we hang out with that person, at any given moment, whether that was it could have even been the family we grew up with. When you go out, does mom and dad, when you were a kid, did mom and dad criticize or talk about people at other tables, or did they talk about people that were out?
Yeah.
This is building into your framework as a young person, and now as an adult, and you're like trying to think through what body positivity looks like. It's filtered through how many times in my life people have been, even if they weren't talking about me, they're talking about everybody else, and my brain goes, man, what must they think about me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if my crew is talking about all those other people, then anytime we're out, I'm thinking that crew is talking about me too. And so, sometimes we think we're like, well, I don't do that, but we're it's filtered through our relationships that we've had. Sometimes in the past, we've had relationships that have set that framework up.
Yeah.
As simple as commenting on, I can't believe they wore that shirt with those shoes. Like those simple things that aren't even related to beach, they
That's so
translate and they filter down to how we feel at the beach. Because we're
Yeah.
like, if they talked about us when we're wearing more clothes, what are they talking about when we're wearing less
Yes.
clothes?
Yeah.
Right?
And I like that you pointed out, like, it might not even be about you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you going out to dinner with your parents, they might not say something about you,
Right.
but someone else in the
Yeah.
room, and
Yeah.
how we still internalize that. That's wild. And
Because
it's
we're like,
so
that's what
true.
adults do.
Right.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, we're like, oh, that's what grown-ups do. And so now I get to the beach as a grown-up, and I'm like, that's what grown-ups do, though. Even though I'm actively trying not to, but that's what grown-ups do, because that's what's been taught in my brain.
Charles just did a mic drop.
Yeah, right?
We're all just we're all gonna think over our childhoods for a second.
Well, I think with what you're saying is that's not something that we were necessarily aware or conscious of, a lot of times, and that's something that's so important about our mental health is that we track it, right? I mean, well, you think about like our finances and like having a credit card. You don't think about during the week when you're just swiping your card. So what helps you? Tracking your finances, your budget, tracking your transactions, and all of that. Just having more of a picture of how am I spending money. Not that it fixes your problem, not that it fixes, that you're going to spend less, but that you have an opportunity to decide, do I want to save more money or do I want to spend more? You just have the opportunity. In the same way with our mental health, the more that we track these unconscious things that we're not aware of, it's not going to fix like our attitude or perspective or mindset necessarily, but we at least have a chance. Because when it wasn't unconscious, when we didn't know it existed, we didn't have a chance to even change the mindset. So that's almost like step one is being aware and tracking like these different experiences that could have happened to us, and just asking those questions. How was I raised? How did people talk about other people? And how does that impact how I view myself?
Yeah, definitely.
And what would you suggest to somebody if they just had that moment of like, oh crap, like, is that how somebody talked to me or in my presence as a child? Like, where does somebody start if they just had that aha moment? Like, what do they do after they finish watching this?
Yeah, well, I think that, that at the very least, right, it's just like, I think that's where it starts, is once you have that aha moment, it's like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm so hard on myself. Now you have an opportunity. Do you still agree with it?
Yeah, sure.
Just
Take
have-
a closer look at it.
Yeah, it's like, do you still agree that, you deserve that judgment, that harshness of words? And then oftentimes that's going to take some time and practice to be like, and with the same thing with finances, you need to practice budgeting your money. It doesn't just happen overnight, unless you're just great at it or natural at it, right? But it's,
Some of us.
that's really what it is. You just have a chance and an opportunity to decide, do I still think this about myself? And then it's practice. Okay, how do I don't want to believe that anymore. And that's probably the biggest challenge in like the mountain that we have to climb is I don't want to believe that anymore, but I can't help but think that and believe that.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And then I'm sure you have some thoughts on this, but I know one thing for me, I used to teach elementary school, and one of the things I was very conscious of was when people, even with babies, when people say things to little girls like, oh, you're so pretty, oh, you're so this, reframing or at least adding on to say, but you're also smart, and you're also strong, and you're also brave, and using words that don't describe the physical.
Right.
But for people who have kids in their life, if they just had this aha moment, like what do they do
Right.
kind of in that role?
So, I mean, we all, it's kind of this balance of, my, whatever I say and whatever I do, you still have to take it, you still have to take responsibility for what you do from that point on. So there's that balance of like, all right, so if I think this way, I don't want to throw fault at everybody else around me. But at the same time, if I'm the one in the adult relationship, if I'm the parent, if I'm the guardian, if I'm the teacher, then I wanna keep a pulse on. I wanna keep track of that, because you can't change the way you speak about things if you never ever think about it, right? And so one of the most dangerous things to say is, well, that's just who I am. That's so dangerous, because if that's just who you are, and that's about anything, right? Like that's about literally anything. If that's your mindset, then you need to be prepared for the fact that some fault is going to get thrown your way. Like, because at some point you're gonna say something that does shift or change the way the young people around you think about things. And so the biggest thing is, taking a step back and just keeping an idea, keeping a pulse, keeping track, and then catching yourself. And the second biggest thing is apologizing for it. Any of us that are in any role where we are helping anyone grow, or not even that, any relationship that you're in, whether it's work relationship, whether it's a parent-child relationship, sibling relationship, spouse relationship, partner relationship, whatever it is, the wait staff at a restaurant relationship, right? Like, if you say something and you're like, oh, that could have been wrong. Just saying, hey, I'm sorry if I said this and I might have mucked it up. Like, that might not be right. And I'm sorry. And most of the time somebody's going to be like, don't worry about it, it's fine. But in reality, you then just shifted the balance. You've shifted the scale a bit. And so then you've not normalized the behavior of this is what always happens. Because someone has said, hey, I said this and that seemed really judgmental and I'm really sorry. Or like, even like in the scenario I painted a little bit ago where you're sitting at a restaurant and you're talking about people at the restaurant. I can't believe they wore that. I can't believe they're doing that. And then you turn to your kids and go, I'm sorry, I'm not setting a good example. If you're keeping a pulse and you have a mindset of I can always be growing and changing and evolving into a better person, then just being able to say, hey, I said something and it was off. I'm just not in the right space right now. That wasn't right. I shouldn't have said that. Then you're not normalizing it. And so then when the kid grows up, they think about like that stuff is filtered, but then it has a block there of like, oh yeah, but they did say they were wrong. They did say they shouldn't think that way. And so those things will start building up and kind of changing the perspective a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like it's so important for all of us to hear, but especially kids, to hear the adults in their lives apologize for things. To realize that nobody's perfect, right? And also, like, I think adults kind of internalize that idea, like, we have to be perfect when we're parents. But then it also teaches the kid that they're always wrong. Like, the way that they're perceiving it is wrong, or the things that they did was wrong. Instead of realizing that, like, it's not just not putting their parent on a pedestal, but realizing that they're not below them. And that's so important.
Right.
And the one thing I was also thinking about, as you spoke and Joseph about this whole situation of, like, checking yourself and thinking about your thoughts is, I've talked to people who, have changed the way that they've been thinking through the years, that they grew up with certain values or ideals where they're like, I don't really agree with that. I think there's some bias there or something like that. But it's really hard to get rid of those voices, you know, and especially, like, when you're a parent, there's a lot of pressure, like you were saying about not speaking these things, but sometimes we speak without thinking. All of us.
Someday the day is
What
hard.
do you mean? I don't do that.
Yeah, no, never. Always think before I speak. But even if we're just thinking it to ourselves, we can be so hard on ourselves, even when the thought comes through. It's just like, oh, God, why am I thinking that? And so I always like to tell people, I'm like, the first thought is what you were conditioned to think. It's what you were taught. The second thought is who you are. The thought that corrects it. The thought that's like, no, that's not me. Like, that's who you are. Because we don't have control over. Everyone knows what intrusive thoughts are. We have zero control of what goes through our mind. But how we respond to it says a lot about who we are as people. And when you do that out loud for a kid, I feel like that's life-changing.
Yeah.
Now, the second thought is who you are. Like, that's such a good practice for us, just to remember, because we are going to have the intrusive thoughts of hate or of, whatever it is, harshness that maybe we were raised with. It's the first thought, but that second thought is like, I don't want to think that.
Yeah.
And what's okay is like, if that second thought is also harsh or has some of those tones in it, just giving yourself the opportunity to decide, like, is that who I want to be? Is that how I want to speak to myself? You know? And I think often one question we don't ask ourselves enough is we all track, and pay attention to how we talk to other people and the importance of that. And not to dismiss that whatsoever, but the importance of how we talk to ourselves.
Well, and I think, like, we've talked a lot about, like, kids in the last couple minutes, but also if you think about your friend circle and, like, who are the people that you are with, on a regular basis, and, like, what are they saying? What are the conversations you're having in your peer group as well, and are they healthy for you? And, I'm not saying to go out and make all new friends, but you can then have that conversation if you're a close enough group of, hey, this isn't great for me, like the way that we're speaking about people when we're out, or, whatever the case may be. But it's not only when you're in that, like, adult role, but it could also be in a peer group as well.
And I guarantee you, if you're feeling that way, someone else in that group
Yep,
is as well.
absolutely.
Someone else is feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good reminder. If we're self-conscious about our bodies at the beach, probably everyone else is.
Everybody else is too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's important to look at, like, the people that we surround ourselves with. And I don't know if you've had this experience, and I don't know, guys, what conversations you guys like to have. But I know as it gets around beach season, it can get pretty toxic. And there's a lot of conversations, and, like, it feels like almost a competition sometimes when we go out to eat. Like, who ordered the salad and who didn't? And, like, the comments, and it's like, oh, I haven't eaten all day. It's just like, why are we commenting? Yeah, it is. It's like a total badge of honor. Like, oh, I haven't eaten all day. It's like, why did you say that? And it comes out. Like, and especially around these seasons where, like, people are thinking about it. I mean, it's on their mind. It's going to come out in conversation.
Right.
And I think it's important to remember that we're all feeling it, right? But also just thinking about, like, what messages are you surrounding yourself with, and what are people saying? And again, it's not saying, oh, I can't be friends with these people anymore, but maybe bringing up to your friend group, like, I think we're all doing this, and it's not healthy for ourselves.
Right.
And if it's not coming from your friends, it's coming from influencers on Instagram, or
I was going to bring up the comment section. That's another thing. Nope.
I think it's important to keep in mind that even if you have a weight loss goal, like, anything over 1 pound a week is not only unrealistic, it's not healthy. Half a pound a week is probably more in line with what is achievable for most people in a way that makes sense for your life and your body. So, if you're thinking now, like, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds before I go to the beach in June, like, no, you're not. Not in a way that's sustainable, and not in a way that's going to give you energy and that's going to make you feel good about the process. And then if you're doing it in a way that is, a fad diet or a cleanse or a something, it's going to leave you hating the process, right? Oh, diet doesn't work. Oh, exercise isn't for me. Oh, I don't have, I don't feel good. because you need to fuel your workouts appropriately. You need to give yourself the time to make lasting change. So let's all remember that as we start to see things on TikTok and Instagram that like,
Yep. How to lose weight fast.
check that bio for some credentials. Just maybe.
Please check for credentials. Oh my goodness. It's too often I see a video and I'm like, who is this person? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they're not credentialed.
Uh-huh.
Nope.
Right. And I think with that, right, like when we hear something and we're out at a restaurant and someone makes a comment, and we hear something on some influencer, something to just pay attention to is how are we taking it,
Yeah.
right? Like how do the information comes in, how am I locking that and organizing that information in my brain?
Right.
And that's so important because if we're not conscious about it, right, and it's unconscious, it's just we could lock that in like, this is how I view my value and my worth, and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially when it's someone we know that's making the comment, remembering it's saying a lot more about them and where their mental space is than us. Like, we don't have to internalize that
Right.
comment.
So,
But that's easier said than done.
Oh yeah.
Easier said than done.
yep.
I mean, that's my number one, to work with any client, my number one thing is don't take it personally.
Yep.
Like, the stuff that's being said, the stuff that's being done, it's such a small margin that is being done to you. But but we look at it the other way around, where it's everything is to us.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Yes.
no matter
Yeah.
what, everything is directed at us, to us, and it's such a small margin that's actually that way, because everything that someone says is everything to do with their own brain and their own mental health and their own body image issues. You know, anybody that's knocking somebody on the beach is like, oh, they got some other
Yeah.
issues in their
Yeah.
own head.
Yeah, it's not a good look when you do it. It's not. I mean, anyone who's like, well, I can say that about someone else, just don't. Just don't. It's not a good look.
Yeah.
And it's not kind. I feel like we should always be just thinking, am I putting kindness into the world? And if I'm not, maybe I shouldn't say it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's so good. It's, I mean, when you criticize someone else, I mean, what a sign that that person's probably criticizing the hell out of themselves.
Oh,
you know what I
yes.
mean? So.
It's the I'm rubber and you're glue and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like
The school teacher's coming out.
yeah, right. Who knew it was all locked back there somewhere?
So I think touching on real quick, just wanted to touch on with you, kind of this idea of the beach body, and we talked about this a little bit, but just some of the challenges that are kind of brought with it, and again, we touched on this a little bit, but I don't think people realize how damaging fad diets can be and what the repercussions of those are, right? And the importance of eating to nourish ourselves, exercising because we love ourselves, not because we hate ourselves. And then kind of touching on the detriment of our mental health when we don't do it that way.
Yeah.
So, you know, I work with a lot of clients who've been doing fad diets for years, and they switch from one to the next because they don't work. And they switch, I mean, they work for like a select, like that many people. And of course, like I go over with clients all the time, why do all these diets work? Well, what do they have in common, right? We are restricting food somehow, right? Whether we're counting calories, whether we're restricting carbs and doing keto, whether like in the 80s and pulling back fats, like whatever we're doing, we are somehow restricting food. So somehow we're eating less than we were, right? And there's something to energy in versus energy out, which is all a calorie is, which is why we don't need to count it, but that's another day.
Someone just heard that.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I'll do that.
Calories don't matter?
I mean,
That's my life motto.
yes, I mean it's energy, and calories were never meant to be what we counted food by. It is literally, if you look into the science of it, and again, we are not getting into this, but if we look into a science of it, calories just measuring how many degrees Celsius, and it's minute, that it is raising your body temperature, because all energy generates heat, and that is all it is. And it is not all created equal, because different foods have different vitamin and mineral counts, and when you're just restricting calories, you're not paying attention to that and like the quality of the food. But again, that's another.
I think when it comes to food and when it comes to exercise, any program that is telling you to either cut something out or to focus on one thing. Like those are the two really scary things to pay
Those
attention
are the scary
to, right?
ones.
Like it's not you shouldn't just be getting on the treadmill and running to lose weight, right? Like you shouldn't cut out carbs. You shouldn't anything that's kind of really going one way or the other, either all
sort
in
of
on one
extreme.
thing or taking out something. You need that mix, right? You need to do balance work. You need to do strength work. You need to do cardio. You need to do all the things so that you're not taxing one system of your body. You're not developing some muscles more than others. And same thing with your food, right? Like
Yes.
if you look at your plate, I mean, the biggest rule for me is like there should be more than one color on your plate
That's a very
when
good
you
rule.
eat. Like that's it. Just every meal there should be more than one color, and that's gonna make you add something. Whether it's I'm a huge fan of kale chips with scrambled eggs for breakfast.
Lovely.
Sounds weird. It's a way to get color on your
It
plate at breakfast
actually
time.
sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's delightful. But you know, we can get really focused on either calories or you know, there's container systems or other ways to count things. I don't have the mental space for that. Like,
No.
I cannot think about my food in terms of that, but I can look at my plate and say, okay, there's a lot of brown happening. Like, what can I add to this plate that's going to give it a pop of color?
And that's the objective, right? We want to create a lifestyle here. We want to have a way to eat for the rest of our days, not like this 1 week, right? And when it's that overwhelming, you can't live your life anymore. You just can't. If you are counting calories all day, you are not going to be able to think about anything else.
Correct.
It just doesn't work.
And the flip side to that is, right, it's also not great to go, oh, well, screw it. If calories don't count and whatever, I'm just going to eat Whoppers for dinner every night this week. Like,
I
what
feel
could
personally
happen, right?
Do not take it personally.
That's one of those other extremes, right? You want to find that happy place of like, I can go get margaritas and tacos because it's summertime and I want to sit
And it's
outside at this
Tuesday.
bar. And it's Tuesday, yeah.
Why not?
For a second, I was like, is it Tuesday? It's not. It's fine. But that's okay. It's just not a 7-day-a-week thing. So I think finding
eating
that
to nourish
balance.
ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And sometimes the purpose of food is camaraderie. It's to nourish
Yes.
like that part of you. And it has nothing to do with the physical nourishment. Sometimes
No.
it is mental nourishment to share a meal with people.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Well, we have to remember that food holds more value in our culture and our lives than just fueling our
Yes.
bodies. And that's a hard thing for some people to wrap their head around, but I just like think about a food that reminds you of home. Right? Think about a food that takes you back to a childhood memory. A food that's a part of a tradition in your household. Like the holiday would feel empty without it. Food serves a ritual aspect in our life, a cultural aspect, a familial aspect in our life. It can be comforting in different ways. It can also be off-putting in different ways. We have foods in our mind where you're like, after I ate that, I got the flu, and I know that they're not connected, but I can't eat it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we all have these, so we know that food has more of an impact on us than just what it does in our body to fuel us, right? It has an impact on our mental health. And it goes even deeper into the science with that. Like, most of the serotonin in your body, that happy hormone, is made in your gut, right? There is a mind-gut connection here. And so it's important to eat foods that your gut likes, right? That is important. Again, sorry, Charles, no Whoppers every night. But, you know, we also have to think about how these foods play a role in our lives. And it's important not to restrict ourselves in a way that impacts, and it has a detrimental impact on our mental health and on our social life in different ways.
Yeah. It's almost like what I'm hearing is like how much we put worth and value in the food and whether it's healthy value and worth or it's unhealthy.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, we have to think about, and it's something to think about, you know, like what, you know, purpose is this meal kind of playing in my life? How is it fueling me? And it's okay how that answer is. Maybe even just make it a goal to have it fuel you somehow. You know what I mean? Have it nourish you somehow. You know what I mean? And that can be a really healthy way to have some food freedom in your life.
So then can I ask you, for
Yeah.
the person who hears that and they go, okay, well, I wanted to hang out with my friends and I ate here, but that meant I had to cut out even more Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Because like, what do you do to combat like that thought process?
Yep. So one important thing is we don't punish ourselves today for something that happened yesterday or will happen tomorrow. It's important to realize that like calories don't track over. Every day is a fresh day. Also, I encourage people to realize, so when I work with clients, it's less about restricting and more about adding in, right? And so I'm not telling you to cut a bunch of things out of your life. I'm telling you to add in the nutrients. So when you eat that food, your body's going to absorb it the way it's supposed to and flush it out. Because if you have what they call in the world that I don't like, a cheat day, right? When you do that, if you have been eating good all week, if you have fueled your body well, your body is not going to, gain weight, if that's what you're scared of, in one day from that meal. You don't have to restrict all week. However, if you do restrict all week, your body's actually going to go in starvation, and then it's going to hold on to that meal way more, right? So that's the scary thing of it, like just the science behind it, of how that works. But I always encourage people, I'm like, if you're giving your body everything that it needs, it's going to do its job to keep you well. Like, that's the objective of it. So eating all your protein in the day, eating all your vegetables, eating all your healthy fats, when you go out, your body's going to be working at its best to keep you healthy. But that's a hard mindset shift for people.
Sure.
Especially if you've been in a fad diet where you're restricting somehow, if that's the mindset that you're in, instead of fueling yourself.
And from a social aspect, I think one of the things I like to do is I'm also a paper pencil planner. So I sit down on Sunday and I look at my week and I look at okay, where am I going to be for dinner every night? Am I going to be at work or at home for lunchtime? And I'm looking at that, and there are weeks where, I may have 4 social things going on in the evening. So I will look then and say, okay, which of these 2 restaurants am I most excited about?
Sure.
And those are going to be the ones where I'm just going to order whatever I want because I'm really excited about them. And the other restaurants, I might say, okay, I am going to look for something that's a little bit more colorful, a little bit more balanced.
Sure.
I'm still going to go out. I'm still going to enjoy time with my friends, and I'm still going to eat a meal off the menu. But, I'm going to save that, cheat
Yep.
or that thing I'm really excited about. I'm not going to let that be every night of the week. I'm going to let it be some of the nights of the week.
Right.
And same thing with fast food, right? Like if you're in between soccer practice and gymnastics and this and that and stuff after school, fast food has a place in our lives. But maybe instead of fries with your Whopper, you're having a bag of carrots, that kind of thing. So there are ways to kind of...
We're coming back to
I really want to make sure.
Drops like, I don't even like Whoppers.
Right? I really want to make sure I'm not food shaming Whoppers.
Do you even like Whoppers?
I like a Whopper, yeah.
Okay.
No onions, though.
All right.
Oh, so I do it with it has to have the cheese and the bacon for me.
We actually did start talking about the Whopper.
I love it.
Lie down.
Well, I think from all of this, what I'm hearing is I love what you said. Adding in, not restricting.
Yep.
Yes.
And I think in the same way, when we're thinking about our mindset, we're thinking about the words that we're using, not only with others, but with ourselves, is we could take out I just said something bad about myself.
You can't take it out. That's the thing of it. You can't take it out.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. The point is you have to add in positive self-talk. It's not about taking out the negative self-talk, because that's probably still going to be present, and that may still be your second thought. But man, that third thought, if it's a positive thought, it's going to help you so much. And even if it's the 6th thought, you know what I mean? Get it to the 5th, and then the 4th.
Okay.
But it's all about adding in.
What are some examples of what that could look like?
Well, it's kind of thinking about what is the negative thought. Like, I'm an idiot. What's the opposite of that? and starting there. And sometimes like that, then we'll kick ourselves. Like, I can't think of, and I also can't say it to myself, I'm not smart, right? We're not there yet. Like, so you have like the negative, and then you've got the positive, and just what's neutral, what's in between, right? And you taught me this kind of tactic and method of the mirror strategy. What's the mirror strategy, or whatever you call it?
So the mirror exercise is you look in the mirror and you have to look yourself in your eyes, because how often do we honestly look ourselves in the eyes? For a lot of people, that's the challenge just to start. It's just looking yourself in the eye. But we tend to look in the mirror and say a whole lot of negatives. That we immediately are drawn to the things about ourselves that we don't like. And so the mirror exercise challenges you to say positive things about yourself. And they have to be specific things, right? They have to be specific things about ourselves. But a lot of us really struggle to come up with 5 positive things about ourselves. And so we start with neutral statements. And just switching from saying, ugh, I hate the way my hair looks today, going, I have brown hair. And just looking myself in the eye and saying, I have brown hair. It's already creating a new mental rhythm in my head, right? When I look at myself, I have brown hair. That's it. That's where we're laying the bar. And it might sound simple or silly, but it's not. That can be so huge for someone to not look in their mirror and say negative things, to just say neutral statements. And as they start doing it, and as time passes, they look in the mirror one day and go, I actually really like my hair today. And that's where the change happens. It's slow and it takes time, but it can be so huge in someone's life and in someone's day, because those statements that they've been saying negative throughout their day, just starting with that exercise can start to kind of change that through their day.
And I can imagine, I want to ask you guys, adding in your diet, right, where you add in the carrots and with the Whopper, right? It's like, is it start to change for you when like you add in those carrots, and it's like, you know what, I don't want to stop for that Whopper. It's like, I actually packed the sandwich. I'm going to do that instead, because it's more of what my body wants, because you just add in the little things.
And if you've ever, like, eating fruits that are in season, I think is one of the coolest experiments you can do for yourself. Because if you eat fruit that is in season, it's even better if it's like local. It tastes so good and it tastes so sweet, and you will notice that. And then I find then if I reach for a piece of candy or a piece of, you know, right now I've got an Easter basket at home, so I've been like reaching for those little milk chocolate eggs, and they don't taste as good. Like that fake sugar taste does not taste as good after you've gotten really used to that natural sugar taste. It's amazing how quickly that happens kind of to your taste buds when you're eating fresh food.
I wonder, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I wonder in the same way with how quick your mind shifts, right? Like that to wanting the natural sugar more. I wonder how it looks by adding in the neutral statements. That your brain would switch. I actually want the neutral ones. I don't want the fake sugar of my thoughts.
And we have to remember here, the most important part about it is not feeling anger for the negative ones first, right? It's just switching to neutral, and it's not like I'm correcting it. I'm just like, I'm focusing on this. I'm adding this in. And that's a big part of, so when I teach yoga and meditation, so many people come, they're like, I can't meditate. And I'm like, you can. We can do it. And they're like, I can't meditate. I can't turn my mind off. And I'm like, so don't turn your mind off. Let's focus it on something. And they'll be like, well, I always end up thinking about something else. That's okay. The problem isn't that you thought about something else. It's the fact that you got mad at it. And that emotion, that anger where you're like, oh, I thought of something, that pulled you out of the meditation. And I always tell people, like when I'm guiding them through meditation and we get to like the quiet part where I'm supposed to stop talking, you know, I'm like, if thoughts come, acknowledge them without anger or judgment, and then let them drift away. And that will get you into that place of a meditative space that you just, the thought came and you're like, yeah, thoughts are gonna come. It's really hard to sit silently for 2 minutes in our world and not have a single thought come. And it's just like, okay, I acknowledge it. That's something I've got to do later. I'm not mad that I thought about that. That's okay. I'm gonna think about it later, and just focus in again. And I feel like that's what we have to do with our thoughts as well. As a negative thought came, it's like, okay, I know where that came from. I know why I thought that, but not today. I'm going to think about this. And like slowly that creates a mindset shift.
Right. I had a yoga instructor that did that with the meditation. Was like, you read it and then you let it go. And that concept, that was years before I started pursuing like the emotion coaching and things like that. But that concept is so much of what I like to focus on or try to point people to, is that like even when the emotions come in or, you know, and so, you know, thinking about that concept specifically and thinking about how we feel about stuff and thinking about the topic of, you know, beach body, you know, when you are like, it's going to be in the moment, right? You got to learn how to deal with it in the moment, because you can do all the prep you want, but then you're sitting at the beach and it's real. And so you need to, at that point, be able to say, that thought comes in and you're like, sorry, that's not who we are anymore. Like, we're shifting. Or the, nice to see you, but goodbye. Because then those thoughts, they, you know, you can do the eating right, you can do the exercise right, and you can get to the beach looking and meeting all of your goals and nailing it. And then you sit down and you're like, oh, but. And that thought's going to come. Like, that feeling is still going to come. And that's when you have to be able to say, sorry, but that's not who I worked hard for this moment. And I'm not going to let that beat myself up. I'm gonna feel good that I met my goal, or that I worked towards the goal, and even if I didn't meet it. Like, I didn't meet the goal, but I worked hard on it. I didn't meet the goal, but, you know, we had a death in the family. And so it didn't meet it. And I'm okay with that. You know, whatever that might be. We have to be able to have that moment at the where, like in the meditation, you know, we think about it in the meditation moment, but it's in the active thinking of while I'm sitting on the beach and my brain goes, I shouldn't be like that's the moment. That's the training that we also need to have, because then that's the moment where we've got to be like, sorry, you're not welcome here. Like, high thought, but goodbye.
I almost feel like that's the most important exercise. It's the most important routine. It's the most important thing to add in, because you're exactly right. When you're in that moment and the thought comes, that's the true test. That's the true, did I reach my goal? Because it's arbitrary. Whatever your weight loss goal was, whatever was. That's the true goal, is can I say, no, not today. No, we're not this anymore.
Absolutely.
I also think, like, when it comes to body positivity, like, that's a huge buzzword right now, right? And the goal absolutely should always be able to look in the mirror in the morning and, you know, if not say something nice about yourself, say something neutral, right? Like, loving who you are in this moment should 100% be the goal. But I also think that it's important that we give ourselves permission and acknowledge that it's also okay to have goals, right? It's okay to say, I want to, you know, be stronger or lose weight, or it's okay to have those goals. What's not okay, two things. It's not okay to have those goals and then hate who you are in the process of getting there, right? Not okay. No. Hard pass. It's also not okay to use body positivity as an excuse to let your health suffer. And I think that that's something that I see happen, is we take it to another extreme of like, oh, well, I'm just going to, you know, I don't have to care about this because I love who I am. And that's great, and I want you to love who you are, but I also want you to be here when you're 90.
Sometimes we can be feeding something that's not healthy for us. There can be another reason why we are turning to a certain food or over exercising or different things that we are doing that are not healthy for our mental or physical health. There's seasons, right? Sometimes it's hard, and if there's something else going on with your mental health, I mean, that's real. you know, and so it's important to think, I think just thinking the reasons behind why something is happening, and if there is something like that, encouraging those, you know, that individual to seek help for their mental health in whatever way that they need it, you know, and to be okay with like whatever that season looks like, but to always be nourishing yourself in some way.
And I think when we think about our fitness goals, right, a lot of times people's goals are pretty immediate. And it may not feel like it if you're saying, I want to lose X amount of weight in 6 months. 6 months is a really short amount of time. Like, I'm 35. I plan on being on this earth 35 years from now. Like, 6 months is not a long time. So, yeah, if there is a period of life where, you know, your kids are taking priority, your school is taking priority, or your mental health is taking priority, and exercise and nutrition fall to a back burner, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's okay because you don't have to look just 6 months into the future.
Yep.
Like your lifestyle of food and movement should be for the long term.
What are some exercises in addition to the ones we've mentioned? Do we have any others that either we've, you know, recommended or used ourselves, or both, you know, that can kind of help with self-confidence, body positivity, some self-love? Or like you were talking about, like in the moment, right? And like, you know, telling that thought, you know, nice to see you, but bye. You know, like what are some things that can kind of help people who are kind of stuck in this place of, you know, they're not quite to the point that they've realized that every body is a beach body.
Yeah.
Well, I think often I'll work with clients with low self-esteem, and it hits true to like and close to home for me, because that's been a big struggle of mine, is low self-esteem. And I think a personal practice, and as well as one that I often recommend to clients, is starting with what are you proud of about yourself, and just starting there. And sometimes that can be hard, right? Just like the mirror exercise. You go in the mirror and you're like, I'm not proud of myself about anything, but oh man, it's there. There are things that we're unlike anyone else. There are things that are unique about us and true to us, and we know it because it's within us. And that's just the practice of digging, the practice of asking the question. But no, really, what am I proud of myself for?
And it can be small, right?
It really can be. It really can be. But that's probably, when it comes to confidence and when it comes to self-esteem, that practice, just asking that question and then asking it again and then asking it again. That's probably the one practice for that.
I have a friend who uses Sharpie, and on all the mirrors in her house writes affirmations.
Love that.
And and fun fact, if you're worried about Sharpie on mirrors, dry erase marker written over top of it will take it off. It won't be there forever.
If you have a dry erase marker, if you have a dry erase marker,
I mean, you could just write it with the dry erase marker.
I could.
Yeah, but the Sharpie, like, you can still Windex over. You know, like when you get toothpaste splatter on the mirror.
Yeah.
You
You're
can,
not
yeah.
wiping
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You don't want to wipe your affirmations off.
I see where this is going. I mean, at first I did not.
Anyway,
Sorry.
affirmations on the mirror, on the fridge. I do mine on sticky notes because I don't want to write on my mirror with Sharpie.
Fair.
So I have sticky notes in places around my house, like on closet doors or areas that you see. I have one on my coffee maker that you see more often. And, you know, there is whatever the science is behind it. But it takes so many hundreds of exposures before something becomes like ingrained or becomes a habit. So just seeing those words in places around your house, even if you don't believe them when you first put them up, it's a really powerful tool to just keep seeing those things over and over again. And if you're like, I don't even know what an affirmation is, I can't think of anything nice about myself, if you Google affirmations, you will find a whole list of good affirmations that you can then just write down and place.
There's also great apps.
Yeah.
And like I keep one on my phone that has its own space on my phone, and it changes every day.
Oh, cool.
So like
Nice.
when you open up your phone, there's something there, and there's some days where I'll screenshot that one, right, and I'll make it a wallpaper.
Very nice.
Kind of save that.
Cool.
So yeah, there's definitely resources, because
Yeah.
that is a hard point, because people are like, I don't know I feel good. And like, I don't know like, what to say. Right? So like a real affirmation and you don't know where to go. But hey, we have a lot of information.
Yeah.
You found all the negative stuff on the internet. So let's find some good stuff there too.
And one of my favorites is not even necessarily positive, but it's I will be okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just that. I will be okay. And it's great because you will be eventually. Even if you're not in that moment, you can believe that. Or I hope that you can believe that.
Right.
And if you don't, it's a good one to start saying.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't, we have resources.
Hello. Yeah. No, that's
I really
a
like
great one. It's a great one.
I had two thoughts when you ask about tools. One is try to take a social media break. Like, and you don't have to do the whole dramatic, I'm leaving the social media.
You do not need to make a social media
for 36 days. Like, you don't need to do that.
I understand if your career is on social
Correct,
media.
yes.
Like, you're like, hey, I won't be on for a week. Don't just
Yes,
unfollow
sure.
this page.
Yes.
You do not need to make a Facebook.
But there's so much science out there about what that little red dot with numbers in it does to our brain, and that we seek attention from it, and so then we try to post to get more of those because the shot of like things it does in my brain feels good, and when we don't see it or when we log on and we click it because we're excited it's a red dot and all it's doing is telling us it's somebody's birthday, and we're like, I'm not gonna wish them happy birthday because that's not what I want, like. Because we get obsessed with that like. We want that like. So that's one just recommendation. Like when you're talking confidence and you're trying to find that in yourself, don't look for it there. Like just take a break.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a couple days, just see if you could just not look for the confidence there.
Yep.
Look for it inside here. So that was one. And then two, an active thing you can do in those moments. And I'm gonna explain this, and it sounds silly, but it is I find it to be a very helpful thing. So when you're talking to someone about, and you're trying to like coach them through, okay, I've got this feeling, right? And so when we're talking about the beach body moment, that's a feeling. That's something that we're feeling. We don't know what to call it all the time, whether it's shame or whether it's just like an uncomfortableness, but it's a feeling that comes up. And so trying to assign it a color in the moment. So in the moment when we're like feeling it, assign it a color. And usually it's a color we're not really liking at the moment. Because, right? Like if it's a bad feeling,
Not my
it's going to be a
favorite
color
color.
that's not your favorite color.
Yeah.
And so then it's kind of working through like, okay, well what color combats that? Like what color could replace that? And if you think that way and like just in your head you kind of picture these colors, you're breathing in that color that you're not really wanting, but your body's producing the color that when you breathe out, it's now changed.
Nice.
And so, like, if I've assigned the color red or something, I'm not claiming red's a bad color. I'm just saying. Just saying. Maybe you've assigned.
That's
the
how I
color
took it
red.
personally.
And so maybe the combat for that is like maybe purple is just a color that I think combats them. So I might breathe in through my nose, like, and then you're doing breathing exercises, right? So you breathe in through your nose and you're breathing in all this red, but you're breathing out and you can visually see purple. Like in your brain, you're seeing purple, and you're like, wait, that came from inside me.
Yeah.
And so
It's empowering.
It sounds silly, but it's empowering. And
Yeah.
I had started with that with kids. Like we would do that in like circle time. We would start doing that. But I'm like, in reality, it really works. Like, especially for my brain. Like I'm a visual like stimulus person. Like everything is there, and I can see it all, and that's what my brain likes. And so for me, that's helpful when you're thinking of this and you're like, all right, this feeling is a color. What color would push that color away just for now? Like they're not gonna like a good color that's gonna combat that.
Yeah.
And just picturing that I'm breathing in the bad, but man, I'm pushing out that good, and that's coming from inside me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I love how you said, like, you think about what color would oppose it. Because I was even thinking about, like, you got the color wheel, and then what's the opposite of that? You know
Like,
what
I need to be precise about this. Gosh, I'm so stupid.
I was thinking,
I don't even know what color is next to it in the rainbow. I don't know.
Colors.
so I was thinking very systematic about this, but I just love how
Got the ruler.
it's just like, what's coming from in here that's going to combat
What's
it.
my color?
It's what's my color.
And I went the opposite. I was like, every time it would be glitter. It would be glitter that would combat. Just glitter.
I think of Trolls with Guy Diamond, like. Yes.
Oh, I love that.
But that's something you can actively do in that moment, like,
Yeah.
and nobody has to know.
No.
Nobody else has to know, but it's in my head.
No one has to know about your glitter.
Nobody.
But you can
If you've
tell
got glitter,
anyone.
everybody knows.
You find that 5 years later. See it on the beach.
As a school teacher, you like glitter like that.
So, as a teacher, no. As a human being, yes.
Oh man.
I just wanted to piggyback too off the social media one that you mentioned as well. So taking a break from social media, absolutely. Also, what's on your feed is very important. And if you are following pages that do not bring you joy, what are you doing? I mean,
Right.
this is like literally curated to you. No one cares what's on your feed. No one's looking at your feed but you. Don't follow people. And I know, so this goes into the whole thing like not cutting people out in your life. Like, oh, well, I can't unfollow, you know, mom's best friend. She'll get mad. There's a feature
Snooze.
on Facebook where you can see less of this person. They don't even have to know. I have definitely done that.
I
Like,
use
I
the
can't
snooze for
unfriend
30
them.
days so often
Yeah.
it's not even funny.
Yes.
And then they come back and I'm like, what are you doing here? Snooze
Yeah.
for 30 days.
I felt so good I didn't even notice the time passing.
Yeah.
I feel
Yes.
like I have finally achieved a good spot on Instagram because when you like scroll to the left and it's like, you know, the content, mine is 98% French Bulldog videos.
Oh, nice.
And like 2% colorful hairstyles.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it makes me, I don't even click on
You've
the
made
videos. I just like look at this wall of like puppies and I'm like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the way those algorithms work. Is like, so if I'm scrolling and I'm slow on a scroll, it thinks I'm watching that video. And so if I'm watching something that's feeding me negative thoughts,
You're gonna get
then
more.
Facebook goes, or any of those sites go, oh, you want more of this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You
And
want
so-
more of the drama.
and so, if you want to change that quick, get on and search French bulldogs. Get on
Yeah.
and search pickles. Get on and search stupid dogs. Like,
Yeah.
find something
So
and
great.
just search it,
So great.
and then scroll for like a minute, because then the algorithm shifts.
Yeah.
The algorithm shifts very fast
Very
because
fast.
it goes on how fast you scroll past a video. And so, if you pause for a second just to see. This will happen in political discussions too. You pause on one, even if you disagree, but you
Yes.
paused to see what it was about.
I wanted
Now-
to read the comments for the tea. Yeah.
Now the algorithm goes, oh, you want more,
Yep.
and they throw 2,000 more at you. And so just search something random.
Yeah.
It does happen so fast too. It was even just like it was like a month or so. I was like, I don't want to see pictures of people, which is so weird for me. But I was just in a place where I was like, I need to tune everything out. I need nothing. I'm scrolling on my phone and I want nothing. And so I just started reading. I like to read. And I was like, I want articles, right? And so I was scrolling past photos. I'm like, I need to not see everyone's highlight reel right now. I'm just on here to like read some content and see fun videos and stuff. And so I was liking the articles.
Yeah.
When I went on my feed for the next week, I saw no photos of anyone. I have so many friends on Facebook. I have friended people where I'm like, I think we have someone in common and you wanted to be friends, so I'm a people pleaser, you know. And I was like, it got to like a week and I'm like, are people not posting anymore? I'm like, people have got to be posting. That cannot be it.
Right.
And so I scrolled for like 5 minutes until I finally saw a photo and I'm like, okay. And I liked it.
Yeah.
And it just took a couple and then I saw photos in my feed again. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It happens like that.
Yeah.
It changes your feed. And just when I was in a dark place one day, it changed my feed for an entire week. And I had to be like intentional about changing
Yeah.
it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think what that's saying is, we cannot get away from the internet. We can't get away from social media in a lot of ways. But man, there are some ways and strategies to use it to our advantage.
Right.
Not just our own selfish benefit, but for our own just mental health, our own
Right.
just like growing who we are and our value.
And there
you
can be
know?
so much positivity out there.
Oh, yeah.
There is stuff out there. I definitely, my TikTok scroll, there is nothing drama on there. It does
Evolve
not
Wellness
happen.
is a great one to follow.
Yeah, it's just, by the way, Evolve Holistic Health on Instagram. But yeah, you know, it's just, it really is what you're curating it to be. And yeah, something else might pop up, but then we get to go, nope, not today. You know, but it just, if you can't get away from it, and we can't,
Right.
make it something that encourages you.
And my encouragement for a break is actually if that's where you're looking for your validation.
Yes.
That's my encouragement for a break. But you're right though. On the other side of that, if you're going to scroll,
Yeah.
then just mess with the algorithm. Make it a fun game to be like, guess what I'm thinking, algorithm. Like, because in reality, you know, it itself is not an evil thing, and so
No.
when I say like, hey, take a break, I'm not saying it's evil. I'm saying just
No.
be so careful if
Yeah.
that's where you're looking for the validation.
Well, and a lot of our phones now, right, have the timers that tell us, like, this is how much time you've spent on this app. So if you are kind of taking a break for that
Scary
reason,
thing.
maybe it's not a validation issue, but it is like
Yeah.
oh crap, I could have read an entire book this week if I wasn't scrolling Instagram. I moved Instagram from like my home page just over a screen. So now if I want to go to Instagram, I have to like swipe to the next screen on my phone. I'm on it so much less because
Or-
it's not right there.
Or delete the app and you have to sign on in a browser.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's elite level. I have been wanting to delete so much social off my phone for so long, and I do the marketing, so I can't.
Yeah,
But it is such a problem. Like, I'll have it up, and I'll have done, and I'll be like, and I'll just click on TikTok, and I'll just scroll for a while, and I'm like, TikTok's my problem. I can get off Instagram. But it really does kind of suck you in, and so it is good to kind of set those timers and stuff. It's been a goal of mine in therapy for months to do intentional self-care. To be like, instead of scrolling TikTok, instead of like vegging out, instead of like just like doing something mindless, actually picking up a book. And it's been like when I open the app, it's like, okay, why are we doing this right now?
Yeah.
Are we needing self-care time right now? I know it's not scheduled in because I'm a planner. It's like, schedule in self-care time. You're like, if we need a break, that's
Is that not how
fine.
self-care works?
I thought it was. And I get a little check mark.
Right, exactly. I get serotonin from the check mark too. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Color-coded pens.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are one mind.
Tyler and I will do a planning session video. It'll be great. Yeah.
But like thinking about, I'll be like, why are you? It's like if you need a break, that's fine. Let's go outside and walk around. Let's grab a book. Let's play with the puppy. Let's do something that's not just mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah, and I think it just all goes back to the idea of what are you adding in,
Yeah.
and what are
Yes.
you subtracting, right?
Yeah.
What are you adding in and not restricting, you know? And you can add in more negatives, but it's like, I mean, it's simple math, right?
Please
if you
don't,
just
though.
plus, if you just plus negatives, it's like it's still a negative. It's still minus, even though
Yeah.
it may be adding. I'm eating more junk food. I'm eating more of this. It's more minus, you know?
Knowing it's so hard sometimes to know your worth as a person. We have so many messages in our lives that we've received. Someone talking to about someone else, someone saying something to us that we took personally. They might not have even intended it. They might have had a bad day, but we heard it and we listened to it and we held on to it. And I remember things that were said to me all the way back in elementary school, and I'm like, why are you holding on to that? You were 8 and you were doing something silly. It was silly, but it's just like you held on to it, and this you've internalized this thing. And then we see things on social media, and we see things everywhere, and it can be really, really hard to know our worth. And I think it's very important. Everything that we've said here it's just baby steps. It's just adding in the good. Don't worry about trying to take out the bad. Just add in the good, one step at a time, and you're gonna start to want that more.
Buy clothes that you feel good in.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's the easiest thing you can do to feel better about your current body is don't try to wear the clothes from last summer if they're too tight and uncomfortable.
Yes.
Go to Goodwill, go to your favorite store, go wherever it is that you go to get clothes and buy clothes that fit you correctly, and you will feel better physically. You will look better because things won't be too tight or too this or too that. it makes such a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just be in clothes that make you comfortable.
Buy clothes that make you happy.
Yeah.
Please don't buy clothes just because they're what everybody else likes. Buy clothes that make you feel good. Buy clothes that make you happy, that are fit well on your body. It's so important.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Exhibit A, watermelon shirt. Like, if this doesn't make you happy, nothing will. Yeah.
And office socks.
Ooh.
What socks? What?
Office socks.
What are those?
It says the office on there.
Oh, the office. You're like office socks, and I'm like
They
dress
say
Is
socks.
that a
Like,
thing? Yeah.
They're Argyle. I don't know why I said it that way.
Well, thank you guys so much for
Yeah.
coming out for this conversation, and I hope that people are left with just more positivity in their lives, and how can you add that more into your life. So we just appreciate you guys coming out and having this conversation. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Having the
guys.
right people in your corners,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, very, very important.
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, buy the bathing suit that makes you happy.
Yes.
Just a tile
Just
in
to,
there.
just to wrap this up in a little bow. Yeah.
Buy the bathing suit that makes you happy.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.